And awesome. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. Obviously, we're here to look at Canvas quizzing by the calendar invite that you received and you replied to. So just to start, I want to launch a poll and get some feedback as to how you have used or not used Canvas quizzing before. Another couple seconds to finish up. Fabulous. There is our last vote. So we have 3 people who say they've used Canvas quizzes before. We have 4 people who say no. And thankfully, we did not get anyone that said used what, which would be, wow, you really replied and you said that. Outside of Canvas quizzing, Zoom polls are a great way to foster interaction and engagement in your course. So you can see that that was a very basic question. You were able to answer yes and no, and hopefully you're able to see my poll results right now. So obviously that's a very simple yes or no, but you could have much more complex questions. A great opportunity to reflect on some test taking strategies or keywords or things like that. So just another feature that's in there. You can build questions beforehand. So to save a little bit of time, you can do that. Or if they're intricate, I would encourage you to have them in a Word document so you can copy and paste real quick in a class. But that's a whole nother thing. So let's jump into Canvas quizzing. Our agenda for today, I was going to make up a PowerPoint and like share it and everything, and I thought that was way over the top for our group. So I'm just going to talk throughout it. And of course, if you have a question, you're welcome to unmute yourself. I can pretty much tell by facial reactions what's going on. And then of course, if you want to just type it in the chat, I will be happy to address it that way. I obviously plan on sharing the recording. So I would encourage your questions to go in the chat so that colleagues that aren't here see the questions that were asked and can read them and then hear our responses. So always good to document those in the chat. That's perfect too. All right, so Diane, thank you so much for coming. I'm happy to see you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here to look at Canvas quizzing. We're going to start very basic, looking at how to set up a quiz. What are the options when setting up a quiz? We're going to look at how to take some questions from your publisher resources and put those into Canvas so that you have some quiz questions already ready to go. In my experience, the questions that come from the publisher are a plethora of things. The one that I imported was 18 quizzes with 40 questions each. So very much overkill. So it's a resource. We don't want you to think that the stuff we're getting from our publisher is the end all be all. Those of you that are certainly using this for the pre-test, post-test kind of approach, we would encourage you to limit those question numbers, certainly not 40 in that case. So once you do that import, going through them, looking at some of those answer choices, making sure they're certainly good distractors, making sure they're things that you agree with, things that you're actually going over in class, would certainly behoove you as the instructor rather than answering all the questions about the quiz, doing a little bit of front end work there. And then of course, we'll go over any questions at the end and hopefully I'll clear up any misconceptions or any understandings we need from there. All right, so I'm going to start by sharing my screen because of course, for the most part, we're going to be working in Canvas here. So I want you to be able to see that. And here is my Canvas dashboard. Everyone can see that? Just give me a head shake. Mm-hmm. All right, perfect. I'm working on 2 monitors, so I just wanted to make sure you were seeing the correct thing. All right, I'm just gonna go into my informatics course that's running right now. To start, know that obviously like anything in Canvas, we're creating on the back end. Students aren't seeing anything until we publish this. So we're able to go in, make a quiz, move questions around, whatever that might be, before ever hitting that publish button. So we have a lot of time to work in here. All right, so I'm gonna go to, obviously, quizzes. You can see in this case, my quizzes is blanked out. That's noticed here on Canvas. There's an I with it crossed out, meaning the students cannot see this quiz link. What they can see is if you take a quiz and put it into a module, they can see that as long as the module is published and the quiz is published. But they cannot click on quizzes and just get right to the list of quizzes. So you could do it in 2 ways. You could have the quizzes here on the left-hand side enabled so they're able to click right into quizzes, or you can build those quizzes out in modules. I would probably encourage for now, because for the students, this is, for most of them, probably, you know, a large incoming amount of quizzes than they're used to in Canvas. I would enable that quizzes link. If you're putting them in modules, that's great too. But just to alleviate concerns from students, when they go in and they're told to take a quiz, they're going to be looking for the word quiz over here, or they're going to be looking for it in assignments. So we want to make sure we make that clear for them. If you're unsure of how to do that, all of these that you can't see, you just go into the settings of the course. And then inside of your navigation, which is the third tab at the top, this lets you move everything around. So here's my quizzes down here. These are the things that are hidden from students. So I would just take my quizzes and move it up top here and save down at the bottom. Now in my menu, here is my quizzes without the eyeball on it. Okay, so now my students can click on that. And that goes for anything you have in this menu here. You can make visible or not visible as many components as you want. So certainly use that to your to your need. Okay, jumping into quizzes. You'll notice I already have one named here, and that's, or I'm sorry, I already have one here, and that's on purpose. This is an unnamed quiz that did not have a name to it, but notice what this quiz has after the title. Requires Respondus Lockdown Browser. If you are requiring students to use the Respondus Lockdown Browser, that needs to be enabled on the quiz. And what it is that it's a separate browser than anything else. So it's not Google Chrome, it's not Firefox, it's not Safari, it's Respondus Lockdown Browser. And when they're in there and when they engage a quiz, that means they won't be able to engage anything else on their computer. Now, for what we're looking for here, which as we have described in multiple sessions, myself and Donna with you individually, is a more relaxed, informative, not summative, informative approach to quizzing. So I don't necessarily I'm not necessarily telling you that you should use the Respondus Lockdown Browser. I would encourage you to allow students to freely respond to their questions. If you want to go that way and you would like to be more of a high stakes approach and you don't want students to be able to Google and things like that, then that's perfectly fine. But let's be honest, they're probably going to use their textbook anyway as they're sitting there. So we're not going to be able to stop that. This is more of a learning opportunity, an opportunity for them to see question types, an opportunity to talk about question stems, distractors, test taking strategies, an informal setting, a low stakes setting. So the Respondus Lockdown Browser, it's not necessarily a requirement for those of you that will be doing a lot of Canvas quizzing this semester, but is a feature that is available. So if some point you would like to do a more high stake testing environment and we need to lock down that browser, that's perfectly fine. We can certainly do that. But that's something that, you know, requires some thought in the beginning. What kind of environment are you trying to create? And for those of us that are course coordinators on this call, that's, I would say, pretty much up to you. You know, if you're a course coordinator and you have multiple sections, we don't need one section having the lockdown browser and then another section not having that. So that is a conversation to take place amongst your colleagues. We want fairness and stability across the program. And I can tell you that we will certainly get a lot of emails if we have students in one circumstance and others in not such a high stakes circumstance. So please make sure you're having a conversation with your colleagues when you decide to make that choice. Okay? All right, so I'm going to start here with basic. Just like everything in Canvas, I'm looking for a plus sign, in this case, a yellow box, and I'm doing plus quiz. When you open to a quiz, you have your same functions on the right-hand side, the ability to link other things. If that is linking a PowerPoint or a PDF or a document for them to look at before the quiz, that's a fabulous feature. If you're linking to a discussion or a place where maybe the content was talked about, that's a fabulous feature too. Again, above and beyond. All right, so these are other things that we can do outside of just basic quizzing functions. But when I open a quiz, I have two tabs up at the top. I have details and I have questions. Very self-explanatory. So the first tab I'm on are all the details of the quiz, entering a title of the quiz. That would be really tricky and call it test quiz. So when you look at this, here you have obviously what the students are being tested on. I would encourage you, those doing a pre and post test, if you have it set up in modules, you're saying module 3 pre-quiz, module 3 post-quiz. Okay, keep your nomenclature across. If you want to add even more detail, you could maybe include what chapter numbers are covered or what concepts are covered. Those are the kind of things that you can put down here in the more details box, so that when I click on it, I can see that in here, I'm going to be tested on chapters 4 and 5 and the lectures that took place last week. Now, it's very important that even though we're calling something a pre-quiz, you as the instructor know if there's something that the students might be struggling on. So just because you're teaching the content that week, not all your quiz content needs to be from that week. If you know there was a question they really struggled on last week, a piece of concept that they really struggled on, put one of those in another pre-quiz so they get an opportunity to see that kind of question being asked again. They get an opportunity to reflect on that type of knowledge again. If we just say, oh, they didn't do good on that one, well, sorry, we're out of that chapter. Let's go to the next pre-quiz. We're really doing ourselves an injustice of spiraling that education to make sure they're proficient in their knowledge. So if you look at the pre-quiz and you see they struggled on something, maybe you want to re-ask or reverb that in the post-quiz, or vice versa. You see something on the post-quiz the prior week, reword, re-ask in a pre-quiz in the next, okay? We're trying to use this to your benefit because we're obviously taking away much more of the formal tests. So this is, again, an opportunity to look at question types, distractors, test-taking strategies, all those things that go into really being successful at the end-all be-all, which is the NCLEX, right? That's what we're all shooting for. We have to get the degree, but at the end of the day, you really have to pass the test. So we want to make sure we're instilling those test-taking strategies and the things that go along with being a good test taker. So yes, here we can include more details. Obviously, for most of you, this is going to be a graded quiz. You're grading it out of some kind of points. Now, I can tell you that when you do graded quiz, it goes off the number of points or the number of questions that you put in the quiz. So we have to do a little bit of back-end work if you want all of the quizzes to be out of 100. What I would encourage you to do is stick to a number, like the number 10, okay? 10 questions in the pre, 10 in the post. The quiz is graded out of 10. It's always the same thing. If you start doing 7 questions here, 8 questions here, 10 questions here, 11 questions here, we get a lot of questions from students at the end of the semester about averages. So why is this this? Why is this this? This number doesn't make sense. Why does it come out this way? Okay. So if we kind of stick to that uniform friendly number of 10, uniform friendly number of 20, something 100, something like that, that, you know, not only makes it easy for the students to comprehend their averages, but it makes it very easy for us to go backwards and do the math and say, this is why what it is. Because we're not just saying, here's 10 points. We're saying, this is 10 points out of 12% of your grade. So there's a lot more calculation going on there than just saying, let's add up the total points and see what we got. So it's best to stick to a uniform number there. I would suggest the 10 or the 100 to kind of make it easier on yourself. So graded quiz. Obviously, we have our categories here. This would be the category that's made in the assignment. So for those of you that are making pre-test quizzes and post-test quizzes, you can just make a pre-test quiz assignment and drop all of them in there, or a post-test quiz assignment category, drop them all in there, or just make a quiz category and drop everything in there. Again, that is up to you. We just need to make sure that the way that you put those numbers in, that they are aligning with the percentages that you have disclosed on your syllabi, right? We want to make sure all that lines up. So we put them in an assignment group so the gradebook knows how to calculate them. We can shuffle our answers. We can put a time limit on it. We can allow multiple attempts. When it comes to multiple attempts, we can tell people how much time they have between each attempt if you would like to remediate. You can also go in and say, I want to show the answers right away. I want to show the answers on a certain date. Again, these are all things that are up to you. We do not have a uniform, hey, this is what we suggest. I certainly suggest you showing the answers to them at some point so they can remediate and go over this, unless of course you intend on going all over it all during class time, which takes away from your lecture time, which we all know is very valuable. So I would encourage to have the answers visible at some point, and then you saying during class, hey, make sure you go in, the pre-test answers are up, or the post-test answers are up. Or you just let the answers up all the time. Again, this is a very low stakes thing. We're not really worried about, students talking to someone or, students having the questions after the fact. We're trying to see this more as a study tool and getting better at testing as a whole. So I don't necessarily see it as a downfall if students do have that information. You can choose how it's displayed, show one question at a time, meaning they only see question 1 and they have to hit forward to go to question 2. If you don't check that box, it will put all the questions on one page. So if you don't check that box, you'll see all 10 questions right away. Again, in ExamSoft, we only see one question at a time. We don't allow students to go back and look over their work. That is a very formal style of testing, and that's what we use for our summative exams. So again, in this case, I wouldn't, 10 questions on a page sounds just fine to me, but I'm going to leave that up to you at your discretion as the educator. I would not require an access code. It's just one more thing to keep up with. That would be another level of security. Excuse me, if you're looking for students to not go in and out. But again, we're looking for a very informal approach here. So you don't need the access code. If you do the access code, that's just one more thing you have to tell the students. So that's one more announcement you have to send, one more email that has to go out if you start putting that level on there. And then we have a filter IP address. That is a function that would be great if we were all on the same IP address, but with people working at home, that is not the case. That would be something good if you had a whole bunch of people on campus and we were testing in one room. We could tell you the range of the IP addresses that are registered in Founders 109, and we could put that range in. So only the people in Founders 109 would be able to access that quiz at that point. It's a way to make sure all your students are there and that your quiz content isn't being exposed in other places. Again, we're very informal here, so I wouldn't suggest that setting, but just another feature that exists inside of Canvas quizzing. And then again, we have who you're assigning this to. For the most part, excuse me, I need a drink because I talk way too much and way too fast. For the most part, you're assigning the quizzes to everyone. But if you have a group of students that you know is struggling on a certain concept or a certain content area, you could always come and put those students into their own group inside of your people function in Canvas. And then when you come here, you can assign a quiz to only that group. Or if you have students that maybe need some makeup work, or some students that might need a couple extra points and you want a way, for them to remediate and see some other things. All you would need to do is put them into a group in Canvas, and then instead of everyone here, you hit the X, you can choose particular students or a particular group to assign just that quiz to, rather than the entire class. But I would think for the most part, it goes to the entire class. I'm just gonna stop real quick and see if I have anything in chat, because I'm talking like crazy. How do I create a Zoom poll ahead of time or while you are speaking? So 2 ways. The Zoom poll can be created while you're speaking if you are the host of the meeting. So right now, I'm guessing when you hover your controls, you do not see polls at the bottom. You need to be the host of the meeting to get the polls feature. In turn, if you have a specific meeting set up, meaning, and this isn't the way that most of us do it, a lot of us take our meeting ID and put it right on our Canvas page, right? So every time the students come to class, they're clicking on that same link. What we have here today that you came to is a scheduled meeting, right? I went into Zoom, I gave it a title, I sent out an invite, you replied to it. That's a scheduled meeting. You didn't just click on a link to come in. So if you have a scheduled meeting, you can go into that scheduled meeting on the Zoom site and start building the questions. If you just have a Zoom link on your front page, You just build those questions in your personal meeting room. And when you launch the polls, you get a linear view of all the questions you built prior. Okay, so there's really two ways. You can build ahead of time if you have a specific meeting, or if it's just the generic meeting ID, you just need to build them for that room and then you select that question. If that's something that any of you want to look at further, I can gladly do that for you at another time. We could spend a whole nother hour talking about the polls inside of Zoom. Okay, perfect. I've used the assign when a quiz has closed and a student missed it due to a legitimate illness and they informed me, I assign it to them at a later date. Yes, that is a great point. Down here at the bottom, when you do assign, this is just one block. So when you assign here to everyone at a specific date and time, that date and time has passed and everyone was supposed to take the quiz. Here, Marianne gave a great example. You have someone who missed the quiz and it's after the due date and time. Rather than opening it for everyone, because you might have had some other people that didn't have a legitimate excuse, you don't want to give them that opportunity. They actually missed it. All you need to do down here is click add. And what you're doing is you're creating a new criteria for a new student or a new group. You can now take Kaylee and give her that quiz from a different time and a different date, okay? And everyone's still in the same frame, but Kaylee, because she had a legitimate excuse, she needs to see it again, I'm able to add another assigned criteria. And you can add multiple assigned criterias. So someone says, I need, I missed it for this, and then, okay, I'll open it up, you have a day. And then someone gets you 2 days later because, another circumstance happened. Come in, add another criteria to it. So you can assign multiple there. It is a little bit to keep up with, and I certainly wouldn't set the precedent of doing that for everyone. It would be, a legitimate doctor's excuse or something that you consider to be a reason, the same reason of missing class, right? We hold that to the same kind of legitimateness and extent. We need a doctor's note or funeral's notice or something like that in order for that to be excused and for you to have the opportunity. Anything else? What do you click under participation? Diane, tell me specifically, what do you mean about your question?
Well, you were starting to go down the list of things to do and you pressed participation. I didn't know what you went to click under there.
Oh, are you talking about up here for the assignment categories?
Yeah, what was it that you clicked there?
I didn't, this is whatever group you decide to put your quizzes in. So these are the assignment groups that already exist inside of my class. So when I make the quiz, it's asking me, where do you want to put that quiz, in what assignment group? In this case, because I don't have a quiz assignment group, I would do plus group and add that quiz assignment group. So all my quizzes fall under quizzes. Does that make sense?
I don't know what Brenda's doing. I know our quizzes are 10 points each week, and they're being graded a certain part of their grade. So I don't know where I'm supposed to put anything.
Yeah, I think for now, Diane, because Brenda's creating the shell, she'll get those percentages and the groups accurate, and then we can work on actually building the individual quizzes.
Okay.
But wait until that shell's done, and we'll figure all that out. Okay? All right, perfect.
So
All right, let me go.
I'll just work on the quizzes themselves in a Word document, or how do they get loaded up? Do they get loaded up online like this, one question at a time?
Yes. They would get it up. They would get uploaded one at a time, but because you're working cooperative with Brenda and you two might want to put an eye on those before you put them in here, go ahead and start in the Word document in this case, and then you and I can work on getting them in Canvas outside of this session.
Okay.
Okay, does that sound good?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so I'm back here in my quiz. Sorry, I jumped to assignments there for a little bit to show you your assignment categories or your assignment groups. But here I'm right back on my details. I'm going to jump over to my second tab, which is questions, right? I built out my title. I said when it's available. I put in the settings that I want. Now I want to actually put the questions into the course, okay? Now, two ways we can do this, right? I already talked about doing this from a publisher, and we're going to look at that. Unfortunately, because of the package that comes from the publisher, that's something that takes a long time to import into Canvas. So I'm not going to show you the import today. I'm going to show you where to go to do it, but I'm not going to sit here and do this because when I imported my last package, I timed it, it took 18 minutes. And you and I aren't going to sit here and look at that for 18 minutes. So in the interest of time, excuse me, I'm going to show you how to create from scratch, and then I'll show you what it looks like when you do import something and that comes through in quizzes. Okay, so let's start with the from scratch portion here. Okay, a couple things. You can just start brand new question right at the top. You also have a question group. This would be something if maybe you want to group it by content or concept or multiple choice and true and false, whatever that might be. You don't necessarily need to do that. That's just another way of organizing what you have. You also have a feature called Find Questions. Okay, and what Find Questions is the question banks. Okay, when we are going in and pulling stuff from a publisher, essentially what we're doing is we're creating a bank of questions. Okay, so that would be where we go to find those. This is also a place where you can go into your question banks and share them with other people. Now, for the most part, the course coordinators are in the classes of everybody else, and we're not really sharing questions across courses. I could be completely wrong with that, but I don't think a lot of that happens. Maybe MedSurg 1 shares with 2 and 2 shares with 3, or Patho 1 shares with 1 and 2 shares with, you know, maybe something like that. But for the most part, we're not really going back and forth, but that's just another feature that's there. You can always, same way we share our documents in OneDrive, you can always share your question banks with other people inside of Canvas. Okay, I'll come back to that question bank when we go into the publisher. I'm just going to start here with a brand new question. Okay, I have my first question I want to ask to the students. I'm going to have this question be called question 1. You can call it Q1. You can just call it question. You don't have to title it at all. It's just another feature that's in there. This is you telling the system what you would like it to, what kind of question you would like it to be. Do you want it to be a multiple choice question, true or false, fill in the blank, fill in multiple blanks, multiple answers, multiple drop downs? There's obviously a whole bunch of options there. What I have had exposure to and what I have done personally are the multiple choice, the true and false, and the fill in the blanks and the multiple answers. The drawback of some of the fill in the blanks is that it's looking for exactly the way you prescribe the system to answer. So if you used a capital letter and the student didn't use a capital letter, it's wrong. If you spelled it one way and the student messed up and spelled it wrong, it's wrong. So now you as the instructor have to go back in and look at those grades, and you're creating a little bit more work for yourself. So because, again, we're in a very informal setting, I would stick more to the multiple choice and the true and false, and certainly you can sprinkle some of the fill in the blank in there and give them some of the options, but make clear in your settings or in your discussions with your students that if something needs to be a capital letter, it should be a capital letter. If something is, supposed to be a whole word or an acronym, be clear in what you're looking for so that you're not going back and having to credit points or regrade things because students perceived it wrong, or they thought they could have put the acronym, or they used an abbreviation, or whatever that might be. So try to think of that stuff on the front end and think about, well, if I was a student, what might I type here? Well, should I just make this a multiple choice question so that they can just pick? Or if I do make it a fill in the blank, let's be clear about what your expectation for that blank is so that you're not going back and forth with them. Okay, so for this case, I'm just going to start with the multiple choice. Very basic. What is your favorite color? My go-to. Notice that inside of this window, just like everything else on Canvas, this is an HTML window. You have all of your features here. You can bold, you can underline, you can highlight, all of those things. For those of us that are maybe in some of the freshman, sophomore level courses, if you're using this, students are just getting used to seeing questions like this, maybe just getting used to seeing nursing questions. This would be a great opportunity to highlight some things and underline some things. Our juniors and seniors might not need that, But for you to be able to identify specific things in questions and have the students draw their attention to those specific things, you're teaching them that strategy for themselves. Not necessarily enabling them by giving them the answer, but you're teaching them that this is something important. You need to draw your attention to this term. This is what they're looking for. This is the key word. You know, I've seen a lot of those nursing questions. I haven't taken the test myself, but I've seen a lot of them. You know, what's the first thing you would do? Or what's the last thing that should be done? Those kind of things that as a tester, sometimes our eyes glance right over. So, you know, in the beginning of stages where we're trying to get students to be proficient in this and build their confidence and let them know that they can be successful within this program, that's an opportunity to bleed in some of those strategies. So maybe bolding some words, highlighting some things, underlining some things. You can obviously do a whole bunch of other stuff here that I would not suggest you do inside of a quiz. I mean, you can put a YouTube video and ask them a question about the YouTube video if you really wanted to. That YouTube stuff is right here. You can put a link to a document, have them read a PDF or look at a web page, and then, answer a question about that. So this question doesn't necessarily just need to be text. You can send them to another source. You can send them to another piece of information and have them answer the question about that piece of information. You can come in here and actually take, you know, something from another source, a TED video or something from your Canvas Studio. I wouldn't take something from Canvas Studio because we can build quizzes right into Canvas Studio. That's a whole nother professional development. And some of you looked at that one is already inside of our YouTube page. And of course, if you want to look more at Canvas Studio, you can reach out to me and we can look at that. But that was covered inside of the Studio one. That's a whole nother thing. So yes, a way to link out there. And then of course, here are your answer choices. Okay, by default, the correct answer is this top choice. All you're doing is if you're putting the correct answer as the third one is just moving the arrow down there and clicking. Now the correct answer is this third choice, or the correct answer is this second choice. Okay, I'm putting my text in here, whatever that might be. For those of you that are pulling from a Word document, you can just copy and paste into these boxes. The one thing you need to be conscious of is that if you have the formatting in the Word document, for example, you have the letter A, a period, a tab, and then the whole question. If you paste inside of this box, you're going to get that same thing. And ideally, you don't want the student to see answer choice number 1, A, period, a huge blank, and then the stem. So I would encourage you that if you're using Word to start, to just leave all that formatting out of it. Just keep it to text so that when you copy and paste in here, you're not getting the 1s, the 2s, the A's, the B's, and the C's. Okay, because Canvas does all of that on their own. They're already saying this is question number 1, and here's answer choice A. So if all of a sudden you start putting different letters and numbers, all of that's going to be all over the place when it comes to them looking inside of the quiz. Okay, so here are my choices. Underneath here, you have the 3 dots. This would be the rationale for the question. A lot of us like to use the rationale. Again, that's up to you. A little bit of feedback. I would encourage you to, of course, they would know when they click the correct answer. But for instances where you know students are going to probably pick one of the wrong answers and you know why they do because you've been teaching the content for a period of time and you know the misconceptions that exist, that is the place to provide the rationale. Okay, so that they can read it, they can see it,
Andrew,
they can yes, go ahead, Diane.
Say there, your questionnaire, what is your favorite color? So you're saying not to put A, blue, B, black, C, red, and D, green? You're not to put those A, B, C, D in the box?
That is correct. Do not put those in the box.
Well, where do you put the you know, the things you want them to evaluate, and where do you put that?
When I'm asking the question here, let me save this question. Okay, when I look at my favorite color question, let me do my save here and go to preview so you can see what the students see. This is what the students see. So it's already grouped in a linear fashion. You're correct. You could put A period black, B period blue, C period red. But when it's already grouped in a linear fashion and you're not necessarily saying, okay, what did everyone choose? I chose B. Well, I chose C. And now if you've selected that you want your answer choice mix, now my B is not the same thing as your C. So those are all over the place. So that's why we kind of stay away from that and just put the term or, the kind of the answer text. Does that make sense?
So you might type a phrase and then return a space in between and do the next phrase and third and the fourth, just like a typical exam question,
Yes, just like a typical exam question, but you don't have to hit return. Each one of these is its own line. So when I hit black, I'm clicking on the next box to hit blue. I'm not hitting return to go to blue. Okay, you're not going down on the page like a Word document. You're clicking in the next box on the field to go to that next answer choice. Does that make sense?
Oh, I see. So then you put the answer choices in the thing there.
Correct, just in these 4 boxes.
4 boxes, okay.
Correct. And if you need
correct answer, you always have to put in where it says correct answer.
Absolutely. Or if you want to move it around, you put the correct answer up here and you click, now that's the correct answer. Or you put it down here and you click, now that's the correct answer. Okay, so you're telling the system which one is correct after you've put the text inside of the boxes. Okay?
Now, does the rationale is at the end of the question then for what is the correct answer?
Yes, the rationale is the 3 dots underneath each one of these. So when I click on my 3 dots, that gives me the opportunity to type what I want to say to the students if they pick that answer.
Okay.
Okay, so sorry you picked the incorrect answer. Please look back at the question stem. We were asking for what the first thing should be done. Maybe they picked what the last thing should be done, or they didn't pick the first thing. So something like that. That's where you would type out or paste that rationale for yourself.
All right.
Okay? And Diane, again, this is a very short hour. You and I can sit and work on this individually too. So if you still have questions after my time today, please just shoot me an email and you and I can sit and work one-on-one so that you have a better understanding of the operations. Okay?
Okay, I hope I'm not the only one that's tentative about this. I mean,
no, not at all.
This is going to take me all the way up through August 29th to do,
Well,
with my typing skills at this point with one freaking hand.
Well, that's why we're
all the way till August 29th.
Well, ideally, we have some questions that are already typed out in Word documents or from the publisher that you can copy and paste some of this.
Well, I have a lot of exams from LaSalle. All my questions from there, I think I can pull them.
Okay, so there you go. There's a place where you can pull some. So absolutely.
Still a lot.
Andrew, it's Mary Ann.
Go ahead, Mary Ann.
What I was going to say, instead of trying to put rationales after every answer, which can be tedious, I go down to the bottom and I do, what is it, with the 3rd block, I guess? That one.
Yes.
General comment. And that's where I put my rationale so that I don't have to do the tediousness of like what's A, B. So that way they see it for regardless of what, A was or blue was the correct answer because that's my favorite. That kind of thing.
All right. And that's a great idea, Mary Ann. So rather than going through and working your way all the way through all 4, we're clicking this 3rd option, which is just general comments. So regardless of what answer I pick, I see the comments. And then you can always provide a rationale. And then you're right, it's only in one place. It's a great idea, Mary Ann. Thank you so much for that. Okay, if you have more than 4 choices, you can always do add another choice, and that will just add a 5th line. You need a 6th, you need a 7th, whatever that might be, you can always add more choices there. And then you want to make sure you always hit this update here, because you can really because we're building all of this on one page, you can really get lost in the questions here. So when I hit update question, here's my question number 1 on the page. And now I can do new question again. And now I'm building question number 2. I do the same thing. I put in the question stem. I choose whether it's multiple choice, true or false, fill in the blank, whatever that might be. And I build out my second question. Okay. One feature I did want to look at in there, and we talked about this a little bit in the beginning and setting up, is that when you go and you do a new question, it defaults to the question being worth 1 point, right? So if you're sticking to the quantity of 10, the lovely number of 10, that means I need to create 10 questions. If you want to do a short one and you don't have 10 for that, and you only want to do 5, then go in and make each question worth 2 points. Now the quiz is still worth 10 points. Or if you're a person of 100s, and I'm guilty of that, I just like everything being out of 100. It's really easy to work with. I know what I get. Then in that case, when I come in, I would say that I want each one of my 10 questions to be worth 10 points. And then by the time I build out my 10 questions, my quiz is worth 100 points. Okay, but that's something you have to do for the individual question. And that's because Quick Canvas is giving you the opportunity to put more weight or more onus on different questions. Maybe you want one question to be worth 2 points and another one worth 4. I remember taking those kinds of tests. It was really nerve-wracking when one question was worth 6 and another one was only worth 2. Like, I really want to get that question worth 6 correct. So, you know, obviously here, we kind of want to stick to that uniform number. So I would stick to either your 10s or your 100s. I wouldn't get any more fancy than that, especially if, you know, you got a lot of us have a whole lot of other things going on in the grade book, you know, in the interest of you know, student inquiries and having to follow up at the end of the semester and all that stuff. You know, find a good uniform benchmark number and stick to it. Okay, and then there's no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm going to save this one here so you can see, excuse me. I am. Let me go back to my quizzes. That here's the one we were working on, and there's only 1 point. There's only one question. Okay, so it gives you a little bit of overview of what you have inside of there. Okay, was there any questions, concerns, or comments for that? I don't see anything in chat at the moment. I'm going to keep on going because this hour goes so fast. Okay, so now I have my 2 different quizzes. I have an unnamed quiz, which does not require the Respondus Lockdown browser, and I have an unnamed quiz that does require the Respondus Lockdown browser. So as the instructor, how do I make sure that the students have to use that browser? Look when I click on the unnamed quiz. Require Respondus Lockdown browser. No. Okay, it's as simple as that. When you come in here to do edit and you look at the settings, there is nothing on this page about the Respondus Lockdown browser. You have to go to a totally separate place for that setting to be turned on, okay? That sleeps over here on the left-hand side as Lockdown browser. So when I click on Lockdown browser, it's talking to my Canvas gradebook and my Canvas quizzes, and it says, oh, I see you have 2 quizzes here. One unnamed, it does not require the Lockdown browser, and one unnamed that does require the Lockdown browser. If I want to change that, all I need to do is click on the arrow and the settings and say that it requires the Lockdown browser. Okay? For the most part, again, I don't think we will be using the Lockdown browser because any of you that are doing that high-stake testing, that is taking place in ExamSoft. But if you do come to an opportunity where you do need to utilize that feature, that would be how you turn it on. Now, when I come here and I say it requires, I hit save and close. Now, both of my unnamed quizzes are registered to have the Respondus Lockdown browser. That is the only way the students will be able to take it. And really for them, it's very straightforward. I saw the student side. When I click on the quiz, it says it requires the Lockdown browser. I click on a link to open that browser. The first time I have to download it, from then on, it's on my computer. So if I click on that link the second time, it just opens the quiz in a different browser window, and I take the quiz, it closes when I'm done. Okay, so it's just another security feature that's there. And of course, if that's something you want to delve more into and you need more information about, please reach out and we'll be more than happy to spend more time with you about that specific feature inside of Canvas quizzing. Okay, when I go back to my quizzes, here are both of mine, and you can see that my title says requires Respondus Lockdown Browser. So you know that, and the students know that. All right. Any questions there? I'm going to jump over to the publisher site so I can show you what to look for inside of your publisher resources if you would like to grab questions from them. All right, perfect. So I'm going to jump over to Course Point, or The Point, which is our Wolters Kluwer site. This is the one that I probably have spent the most time on. I have been on some of the other ones, and they are a similar setup. For the most part, the language that we're using is the same language that's used across all publishers. If someone called it something else, we'd have way too much trouble trying to troubleshoot on the IT side when something doesn't work. So when I'm walking you through the point here, the things we're looking for to take and put into sorry, excuse me. I shouldn't have drank seltzer water during this meeting. I'm burping, and I'm trying not to burp in your ear. The things that we're looking for during this time here in the point is the same language you would look for in any publisher that you're utilizing. Okay, so here I am in the point. I'm going to go to my content. I'm going to go to this first one, which is one of the MedSurg texts, the Hinkle book. When I open this, I have a bunch of tabs. Obviously set up a little bit different depending on what site you're on or what service you're using. But for the most part, we're looking for the course content. We're looking for the content that goes along with the book. When I click on course content, in this case, I get a plethora of information as it loads. This is all the stuff that the students get. And then here's all the stuff that only the faculty or the administrator get. So here you can see a lot of great things, actually. You know, you see the user guides, some sample syllabus, some sample lesson plans, helpful notes, PowerPoint presentations, those of you that are looking for some of that stuff, image banks, so pictures in case you can't find stuff on your regular Google image. What we are here for today is our LMS course cartridges. Now, what this is this gives you a massive zip folder with a whole bunch of content. It gives you a question bank, it gives you stuff for the modules, it gives you assignments. What you need to do as the user is actually select what you want to put inside of your Canvas course. Now, what you can do is right off the bat, you can select all of it. It's not published. You're the only one who can see it. And then you know what's actually available. If you select all of it, you can always go in and remove it. You can always go in and delete it. You can always go in and move it around. But if you only select the question bank, and maybe there is some good PowerPoints or some good module stuff that you could have put your eye on, you're not aware of those things. So I would encourage you that when you do this upload, to just upload everything. And then you can always go in and take that stuff out or delete it or unpublish it, whatever you need to do. But I'm going to go into the LMS course cartridges to be able to import into Canvas. Now, a caveat, because some of you use our, what screen? I am sharing this screen. Some of you use our ExamView service, and this is a test builder, right? So our publishers have different software packages that can be used to build a test. You can also take the content from the test builder and export it out of there and import that into Canvas. So it's really two different things. We could take the whole course cartridge directly from the publisher and throw everything in. Or if you have used the ExamViewer in the past, which I know some of us have because I've worked with you on it, you might already have tests built inside of ExamViewer. We can take those built tests and export them and send them right into Canvas. Okay, so if some of that work is already done, that's another way we can get that in. Again, if that's the case for you, I would encourage you to reach out to me. I will show you on an individual basis how to open the ExamViewer program, how to take the stuff you've already created and pull that out and put it inside of Canvas quizzing, okay? If I had 3 hours to talk to you today, I would show you all of that. But in the interest of time and in the interest of boredom, I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to cover the main facets here. And then if there's other pieces that are specific to you, please reach out so I can help you with those specific pieces. But I'm just trying to touch all the main bases for everyone during these sessions. So let me go back here to my course cartridge. Boom, boom, boom. Couple things. Depending on what LMS, what learning management system the university uses, there's different course cartridges. Angel, Blackboard, Moodle. We don't use any of those. Now, what you can do is import all of those things into Canvas. Canvas takes all of those. So when you look and you go into your publisher and says, well, I don't see anything that says Canvas here. Canvas takes all of the things that are listed here. For my sake, just to be safe, when I started this venture, I just went to the common course cartridge. That means it's a cartridge that can be imported anywhere. And when I did that for Canvas, it allowed me to say, I want the question bank, I want the modules, I want the PowerPoints. It gave me all of those options, okay? So when I do the common course cartridge, look what I did. All I did was click on it, okay? I'm just clicking, common course cartridge, I get a pop-up. This is the massive zip folder with all of the content, okay? It's zipped because it's so huge. You're saving this file, okay? When you save this file, it just goes up here inside of your downloads folder, okay? And then all you need to do is come back to your Canvas course, come down to my settings, do import course content, choose common cartridge because that's the one we clicked on. If you clicked on Blackboard, you would choose Blackboard. If you clicked on Moodle, you would choose Moodle. But in this case, because we know the common cartridge works, I'm choosing common cartridge. I'm browsing for my file. I just downloaded it, so it's going to be in my downloads folder. Up here, up at the top, I can see my Hinkie 13 edition, common course cartridge. I'm clicking on it, I'm hitting open, and I'm going to do all content, okay? Now, what you can do here is create a question bank to start, okay? That will take all of the questions that are being created in this cartridge and throw them inside of that one generic bank. If you want to have separate question banks for module 1, module 2, module 3, whatever that might be, I wouldn't go into all of that, okay? I would just do one foul swoop and just do a unfiled or a brand new question bank that's just titled, in this case, my publisher, Hinkie 13 edition. And I know all the questions that came from that publisher are inside of that folder. Okay, so I'm gonna rename that my Hinkie 13 edition. And I'm doing all content and I'm importing. Now again, because this takes so long, it's gonna sit here and spin for a while. It's gonna come down here and go to queue for a while. And we just have to kind of wait for it to do the work on the back end. Okay, but once that stuff is in there, it's a beautiful thing. The system sees the questions as quizzes and they get put in quizzes. The system sees the content as modules, it gets put in modules. The system sees the PowerPoints as files, it gets put in PowerPoints. You don't have to move all of that stuff in here. That's the beauty of the cartridge. All of that language, all of that computer language, all of those algorithms is already written inside of the data. Okay, so you don't have to go in and move it around. What you need to do is go in and clean it up and decide if you want that all that stuff to be published for students. You have to go in and move those questions around on some of the quizzes, decide how many questions you want, maybe change some of the questions, things like that. But you can see here, my common cartridge is running and I just have the littlest schnurly of a blue that's done so far. Okay, so that's gonna take a little bit of time to get done. So in the interest of time, this is something you wanna sit down, You want to get the common cartridge downloaded from your publisher. You want to put it in Canvas, and you want to walk away and let it sit and let it do its work. Okay, and then come back, check on it in 20 minutes, check on it in 25 minutes. I think mine, the first time I did this, it took around 18 minutes for it to finish all the way through. So this isn't like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do all of this right now. Especially to start, when you're doing the import of this content, it takes a little bit of time for it to come over. And then obviously you have a little bit of work on your hands to clean it up a little bit. Okay, but we'll let that import run. And like I said, the questions will be in the question bank. Let me go to I'm gonna be really good if I remember where I put this last time, because look at all these classes. Let's see here. I think I put it in Boble Summer something. Boble Summer something. Boble Summer something. Oh, Andrew. There it is, summer template, Boble. Let's see if I put it there. Quizzes. Yes, there it is. This is where I did my first import of that same common cartridge. This is everything that came over from that Hinky book into the quizzing function. Again, I didn't tell it what was quizzes. I only put the zip file in. The system sees it as quizzes. It goes in. Here's my chapter 1. I can click edit. I can go in and redo some of my settings, go in and put in my time period of what I need to do. But look at your questions. It went in and built out 40 questions for chapter 1 here. When I look at the question, I can see the question stem, the right answers. It even put in rationale for the correct answer and rationale for the wrong answer. So it has done a whole lot of work for you in the front end. Obviously, I don't want all 40 of these questions in my pre or post quiz, but man, this saves me a lot of time. It's a whole lot easier to delete than it is to create. So I find my 10 questions that I want, I flag those, I delete the other ones. I can even take my, come up here to my quizzes. And even though this is my chapter 1, I can call this my chapter 1 pre, and I can click my 3 dots, hit copy, and now I have a whole nother copy of chapter 1 and name it post. So now you have 2 separate copies of chapter 1, your pre and your post already created with 40 questions in it. All you have to do is clean it up and move some of it around.
So Andrew, like, you're really teaching me something I didn't know. So
Well,
this
good.
is
I'm
awesome.
glad to hear that.
But listen, so to keep that intact, that chapter 1, 40 questions, you want to copy it maybe 3 times so that you have the original 40 questions always there, right?
That is another great suggestion. You could copy it twice, keep your original so you have the 40 questions, never publish it, but you always have the 40 questions in your back pocket. That's a great idea, Donna, by the way. Have the 40 questions in your back pocket, duplicate it, have a pre, edit it to what you need to, duplicate it, have a post, edit it to what you need to. Now you have a hard copy of the 40, your pre and post 10 and 10, or whatever you decide to go. I love that suggestion, Donna. Nice thinking.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Yeah, we all got it sometimes. That's right. We are at 2 o'clock, and I kind of ran right up to the things I wanted to cover, unless there is any other specific questions that I can answer for you right now. I can tell you that tomorrow's session is going to be almost identical to what we did today, except obviously we'll have different questions from different people. I'm going to try to remember the great suggestions that you all came up with here, so that I can say those things out loud tomorrow like they were my own, but I will certainly give you credit because those were great suggestions by Marianne using the overall comment at the bottom of the quiz feature, and by Donna by copying multiple times so you have that generic 40 question test always at your disposal. Both marvelous suggestions today. The tomorrow is at the same time, different place. So 1 o'clock, but it is a different Zoom address. So just check your calendar invite for that address. I will make both of the recordings available via my summary at the end of the week. You know, I always send out that email of the follow-up email. I will put both of the recordings in there. So if you can't come tomorrow and you just want to watch it because you came to the first one and maybe you want to see it again or you need a brush up, both of those will be there for you for your viewing pleasure. I'm going to stop my share at the moment. You are welcome. Those of you saying thank you in the chat, I appreciate your thank yous. Is there anyone else with questions at this time? Whew, that was a quick hour though, wasn't it? Yeah. All right.
Good job, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I appreciate that. And thank you so much for your questions today and your participation and your ideas. You know, all of those things only further all of us. So I appreciate when people come with suggestions and ways they've done it and ways that they found it worked or things that didn't go, you know, the way that happened with them. And obviously this is, some of us, this is uncharted waters. So we're going to find things that work. We're going to find things that are a little bit troublesome and we're going to improve. And really, that's all education is. You know, we can't expect for this to be a glowing diamond to start, but we're certainly going to put, you know, some time and effort into the front end to make it a good product. And again, if you need more time or something more specific or something that has nothing to do with anything that we talked about today, you just need help with something, please reach out to me so I can alleviate some of your stress and help you. And if that's all we got today, I'm going to stop our recording and I will see some of you tomorrow. Others of you, I will see you next time you email me.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.